This car is an absolute beast. You could call it a masterpiece of American mechanical art. A guy, just browsing online with nothing better to do, stumbled upon a 1965 Shelby Cobra replica upper auction. He jumped into the bidding immediately. After a few rounds, he snagged it for the winning bid of $12,000. A few days later, Nick finally received his new toy. He and his brother quickly got the forklift to unload the 1965 Shelby Cobra. As you can see, the fire damage to the engine bay wasn't completely catastrophic. The interior was covered by a simple plastic tarp. After moving it into the shop, they immediately pushed it into the workshop for a closer look. It was time to assess the full extent of the damage. A large section of the body paneling was burned away, and the engine hadn't been spared. But since this was a replica, Nick wasn't a fan of the existing engine anyway and had no plans to reuse it. Next, they inspected the cockpit. The fire hadn't spread too far, so the interior was largely unaffected. After a full walk around, the brothers didn't find any other major issues. Now the teardown could begin. First, they removed the wheels to get better access for disassembling the body. The Shelby Cobra's body is a single, unified shell, so they first had to remove the doors, the front windshield, and then the roll bar. The car's design is incredibly unique and simple, with very few complex parts. It took almost no effort to strip the entire car down. With the shell removed, the Shelby was down to its bare frame. All the removed components were piled up in the workshop. Nick found the design fascinating. However, it was clear that many of the wiring harnesses on the frame had been destroyed in the fire and were unusable. They were also missing a hood, which they'd have to track down. But the teardown was far from over. They carefully packed and saved any parts that could be reused. Cobra parts are hard to come by in North America, and losing even one small piece would mean a massive headache trying to find a replacement later. With the main components laid out, they started on the interior. Thanks to its simple design, they just had to remove the two seats and the seatbelts, and it was empty. After a quick clean, Nick got back to disassembling, removing things like the gear shifter and handbrake handle. Peeling back the leather on the handle revealed rust underneath. Next, they tore out the carpet, which, judging by the torn pieces, seemed to have been glued down section by section by the previous owner. With the interior stripped, it was time to tackle the engine bay. This was by far the most difficult area to disassemble. Many wires and plastic components had melted from the intense heat. Furthermore, being a replica, many of the mounting points and wiring routes were completely different from a standard production car, which added another layer of difficulty. Using a variety of tools, and after half a day of wrestling with it, the brothers finally removed all the burnt components from the engine bay, leaving only the engine. Now they faced a dilemma. What kind of engine should they transplant into it? The first choice was, naturally, a Ford engine, but they were reluctant to tear apart the engine from the Mustang they were already working on, as they were already in talks with several potential buyers for that car. Next, they considered a Honda K-Series Red Top. This engine was arguably a better fit. It's smaller, lighter, and Honda engines are known for their reliability, but they just couldn't bring themselves to tear apart a Honda, as red top engines are also a hot commodity in North America. They even took a trip to the junkyard. The engines there were cheap, but their condition was questionable at best.
Finally, after weighing their options, the brothers spent $1,800 on a used engine. They had no idea if it would actually fit, and the only way to find out was to try it. So they got right back to work, unbolting the fire-damaged engine and hoisting it out of the bay. Then came the moment of truth. Nick carefully lowered the new engine into the frame. As you can see, it practically filled the entire bay. And worse, there was no way to properly mount it. This meant they were back to square one. So Nick immediately headed to an auction, looking for a donor car. He spotted his target, a Ford Mustang with a 5.0-liter V8 in the engine bay. It was a wreck, nearly at the end of its life, but from its deep, throaty roar, you could tell the engine was still in its prime. Nick was clearly sold. He jumped into the bidding and won it for the scrap price of $2,800. As a little bonus, he picked up a motorcycle too. Once they towed the donor car back to the shop, they wasted no time getting it unloaded and into the workshop. Nick started it up one more time to confirm the engine and transmission were running as expected. Thankfully, there were no surprises this time. The brothers split up to speed things up. One started stripping the burnt firewall and sanding the soot-stained frame, while the other began dismantling the donor car. Soon, they had made progress. The big V8 heart was successfully pulled from the donor car along with its attached transmission. This was exactly why they were willing to spend $2,800. It saved them the time and money of sourcing a separate gearbox. The engine looked rough, so they gave it a quick cleaning. Meanwhile, the sanded frame was prepped and given a fresh coat of paint. Since the original firewall was destroyed, Nick had to fabricate a new one. With his skills, this was an easy task. He quickly cut out the panels needed for the engine bay and secured them to the frame with rivets. With the initial frame prep done, they shifted focus back to the donor car. With the main prize, the engine, already out, they just needed to salvage a few more essential parts, like the ignition system, instrument cluster, and the entire wiring harness and fuse box. The Cobra's original electricals have been completely fried in the fire. During this time, they were also hunting for parts. They managed to find a Cobra windshield and a new hood. Tracking down rare parts like these is 3 parts luck and 7 parts perseverance. With all the necessary components gathered, the brothers began prepping the engine. This mainly involved stripping away all the unnecessary wiring from the Mustang's harness, keeping only what was needed to run the engine. The Cobra's body is much smaller than the Mustang's, and it didn't need any of the modern electronic features. It took a lot of work to clean up the complex harness. Then they connected a battery and tried to start the engine on its stand. It didn't disappoint, firing right up on the first try. After confirming the engine ran smoothly, they removed the exhaust manifolds and prepared for a test fit. The huge engine was slowly and carefully maneuvered into the bay. After countless adjustments, they successfully test-fitted the engine and transmission, a huge step forward. But they were far from done. The real test was fitting the body shell back on. After a tenth moment, the shell slid on perfectly. They also test-fitted the new hood and windshield, and everything lined up.
Now it was time to repair the burnt body shell. Nick first made a cardboard template to help with shaping the new fiberglass. Then he started sanding the burnt areas to prep for the repair. After cleaning the surrounding area, he began applying layers of fiberglass. This was an incredibly tedious step because he wasn't just patching a hole, he was also building up the entire edge frame from scratch. Once the fiberglass cured, he had to sand down the rough edges before applying a second layer. It was meticulous work, and Nick spent the better part of a day on this repair alone. After patching all the burned areas, he applied body filler to further smooth out the body panels. Once the filler cured, it required another round of sanding. The rest of the bodywork process was more of the same, so we'll skip ahead. With the bodywork complete, it was time to spray a coat of primer. This marked the end of the initial surface repair phase. While waiting for some parts to arrive, Nick continued to perfect the body shell, sanding away excess material from the repairs and cleaning up the burn marks on the inside of the shell, followed by more fiberglass and sanding. Meanwhile, his brother wasn't idle. He removed the test-fitted engine and transmission to replace the flywheel and clutch. But after hours of work, they discovered the new clutch disc didn't match the original. They had to order another one. The bodywork continued. The entire car, including the doors and trunk lid, was sanded down and prepped for primer. After nearly another week of waiting, the new flywheel and clutch finally arrived. Nick installed them immediately, bolted the transmission back on, and the complete powertrain was reinstalled in the chassis for the final time. The brothers also serviced the engine, changing the oil and installing a new filter. The new exhaust headers that had arrived were also bolted on. With all the prep work done, they woke the beast once again, this time in its new body. The raw, open headers let out a 5-alarm roar, which brought a huge smile to the brothers' faces. They couldn't wait any longer. They grabbed 4 wheels and tires and temporarily mounted them. The moment of ignition was pure chaos. The engine on the frame roared to life like an awakening dragon, letting out a thunderous blast. With the engine started, the body shell could be reinstalled on the frame for good.
During this time, another package arrived at the shop. Inside was a brand new set of wheels. This was another $3,800, and Nick was beaming. These were custom designed, and at that price, it was a fantastic deal. In their spare time, they also fabricated a new center console. They used the instrument cluster from the donor Mustang and even installed a modern head unit. Personally, I think this was a total mistake. It completely ruins the pure mechanical aesthetic of the original car. But Nick explained that he loves listening to music while he drives, so that was his reasoning. With the new dash in place, Nick took the Go-Kart Cobra out for a test drive to check for any fluid leaks or other mechanical issues. You have to confirm everything is working perfectly before moving on to the final stages. Now all that was left was the paint. Nick chose a dark gray matte finish. As he applied coat after coat, the color deepened, and the texture of the matte finish began to emerge. After painting the doors and hood, he moved on to the main body. The process is the same, so we'll skip ahead to the finished product. Up close, the paint actually has a really nice quality texture. It's not as bad as I imagined. Nick was very happy with the result. This color is definitely a unique and bold choice for a Shelby Cobra.
With the body's new style, the other trim pieces had to be updated to match. Before painting, Nick polished all the original chrome parts, restoring them to their former glory. Then he painted them all black. Now, a lot of you guys might think that painting the chrome black loses some of that classic American muscle essence. But from behind the screen, all we can do is watch. The owner has his own style. One by one, every piece of chrome trim on the car was blacked out, even the side pipes. From these details, it was clear Nick was building a full-on Black Warrior or murdered out build. Nick also had a plan for the exhaust headers. The previous owner's car caught fire, so he was taking no chances. Considering the high temperatures of the exhaust, he decided to wrap the headers with heat-insulating wrap to prevent another engine bay fire. The wrapped headers were immediately installed. And now it was time for the debut of the custom wheels. For once, Nick bought a brand new set of tires, but looking at them on the floor, he had another idea. He blacked out the white lettering. Honestly, seeing this, I just want to slap him through the screen. He has zero aesthetic sense. He's taking a beautiful car and just messing it all up. But at this point, we have to stick around to see the end results. Now, all that was left was to install all the restored components one by one. The Cobra was undergoing its final transformation. With the last piece of the center console in place, the rebuild of this 1965 Cobra replica was finally complete. As is tradition, let's end the video by checking out the final specs. With nearly 500 horsepower, this Cobra should have more than enough power to play with. So, what do you guys think of this build? Are you satisfied with how it turned out? Let me know in the comments.